Hello everyone, I Bhagya NP, Assistant Professor, Department of Chemistry, Sai Vidya Institute of Technology, Bangalore. In this session, I am going to teach you fuels. The objective of this session is definition of fuel cell, difference between batteries and fuel cell, advantages and limitations of fuel cell, construction working of methanol oxygen fuel cell, and its applications. So these are the topics I am going to teach you in this session. So first starts with the fuel cell definition. What is that fuel cell? Fuel cell is also a kind of galvanic cell which converts chemical energy of fuels into a electrical energy through redox reaction. When this kind of electrical energy is being produced, so during that time there is a liberation of minimum harmful byproducts to the environment. So that is called as fuel cell. Means fuel cell is also a galvanic cell which converts chemical energy of fuel into a electrical energy. So when you look at this, usually in the fuel cell at anode always fuels are supplied and at cathode always oxidants are supplied. Oxidant means here it is oxygen is used as a oxidant. So that is about the definition of fuel cell. So now we'll start with the difference between conventional cell or batteries and the fuel cell. What are the difference between battery and the fuel cell? See, the first difference is battery makes electricity from the energy it has stored inside the battery, whereas fuel cell makes its electricity from the fuel in an external fuel tank. The second difference is battery may run dead, but fuel cell will make electricity as long as fuel is supplied. And the third difference is battery store chemical energy, whereas fuel cell doesn't store any kind of chemical energy. And the fourth difference is in the battery, reactants are supplied and the products are not removed. Whereas in the fuel cells, reactants are supplied continuously and the products are removed simultaneously. And the fifth difference between battery and the fuel cell is the construction cost is very high in batteries, whereas the construction cost is low in the fuel cells. And the last difference is lifetime of battery is very less, whereas lifetime of fuel cell is high when compared to the battery. So these are the difference between battery and the fuel cells. The next we'll move on to the limitation of fuel cell. What are the limitation of fuel cell? The power output is moderate. It is not too high or not too low. It is moderate. And the fuels are to be stored in a tank under high pressure in tanks. And in the fuel cells, it generates only DC. If you want AC, then whatever the DC current is generated from the fuel, that has to be converted into AC. So these are the limitations of fuel cells. The next we'll move on to the advantages of fuel cells. Advantages is it doesn't pollute the atmosphere and electrical energy can be obtained continuously. And the fuel cell provides very high quality of DC power. And these fuel cells have a higher efficiency than the diesel or petrol engines. So these are the advantages of fuel cells. Now we'll move on to the construction, working and applications of methanol oxygen fuel cell. First we'll start with the construction. When you look into this diagram, so this is the construction of this methanol oxygen fuel cell. So in the beginning of the session, when I was explaining fuel cell definition, so I said that the fuel is always supplied through the anode and the oxygen or oxidant is supplied through the cathode. So in this methanol oxygen fuel cell, methanol is a fuel, oxygen is a oxidant. So that means methanol is supplied through the anode and the oxygen is supplied through the cathode. That is the supply of fuels into this fuel cell. Then, before going to explain the construction part, first let us know composition of this methanol oxygen fuel cell. Composition, as I said, fuel is here, methanol is a fuel. Then oxidant is oxygen. Then the sulfuric acid, what we are seeing in this diagram here, this sulfuric acid, it acts as a electrolyte and the output of this fuel is 1.2. So now we'll move on to the construction of this methanol oxygen fuel cell. Construction means as it is the same diagram we have to explain it. So when you look into this diagram, it consists of two compartments. So you can see this cursor consists of two compartments. One is anode compartment, other one is cathode compartment. So these two anode and the cathode are made up of platinum electrodes. And here you can see one more membrane, dark color. So this is a cellulose membrane and this cellulose membrane is placed near to the cathode. And here electrolyte is used and the electrolyte here we use this sulfuric acid. So this is about the construction of this methanol oxygen fuel cell. And also as I said, methanol when it mixed with the very small quantity of sulfuric acid, this fuel is passed through the anode and whereas oxygen is passed through the cathode. So now the question rises why we have placed membrane near to the cathode. So why? Because when we passed methanol through the anode, there is a possibility of diffusion of methanol into a cathode. So to avoid this, the cellulose membrane is placed next to the cathode so that it prevents the diffusion of methanol into a cathode. So that is the role of placing membrane next to the cathode. So this is about the construction part. So that is what I explained here. See, the first point is, as I said, it consists of anode and cathode compartments. So this is anode and this is cathode compartment. And both compartments are contain platinum electrodes. That means both anode and the cathode is made up of platinum electrodes. Methanol containing sulfuric acid is passed through the anodic compartment and oxygen is passed through the cathodic compartment. This is the one. Methanol which containing very small amount of sulfuric acid is passed through this anode and the oxidant, that is oxygen, is passed through the cathode. And sulfuric acid is used as a electrolyte here, but this is what sulfuric acid we are using it. And the membrane, that is cellulose, is placed next to the cathode which prevents the diffusion of methanol into the cathode. This is the one. And the output of this voltage is, or this fuel cell is 1.2 volt. So this is about construction of methanol oxygen fuel cell. So now we'll move to the working of fuel cell. So working means first anode reaction, cathode reaction. First is at anode. Anode. So as I said, what we passed through this anode, fuel, which is a fuel we used in this experiment or in this construction of fuel cell, that is methanol. So this methanol, where do we get this water? So usually methanol consists of very small amount of moisture. Here we are not using 100% methanol, we are using 99% of methanol. Remaining 1% consists of moisture. So this methanol, in the presence of moisture, it undergo oxidation. Why it undergo oxidation? Because at anode always oxidation reaction takes place. It undergo oxidation and it liberates carbon dioxide and 6 number of H plus ions and 6 number of electrons. When we consider the cathode, at cathode what we have passed? Oxygen. So this oxygen reacts with the H plus ions and electrons which is liberated by the anodic reactions and it forms the 3 mole of or 3 molecules of water. When you look into this overall reaction, so this 6 H plus ions, 6 H plus ions get cancelled, 6 electrons get cancelled. Then the remaining things we have to write it as it is. Methanol is there, so here we are also writing the methanol overall reaction. Then water is here, and here 3 molecule of water, here 1 molecule. So when we going to subtract 3 minus 1, we are going to get a 2 molecule of water. So that is what I have written it on a product side. And 3 by 2 of oxygen, 3 by 2 of oxygen is there. So aroma, carbon dioxide is there released and carbon dioxide is there. So this is the overall reaction of this methanol oxygen fuel cell. What are the application of this methanol oxygen fuel cell? This fuel cell is used in a it is used mainly in military applications, and also it is used in large scale power productions. So that's all about today's session. Thank you.